Good morning. Welcome to the final State Council of this school year. And what a year it's been. The Red for Ed movement, which began a little over a year ago in West Virginia, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Colorado, Arizona, North Carolina, is alive and well here in California. Educators are rising up on behalf of their students, and they're demanding full funding, pushing back on the privatizers who want to dismantle our public education system because they see dollar signs rather than a fundamental civil right that keeps our democracy strong. And nowhere was that more evident than on our Red for Day action just 2 weeks ago. I want to thank all of you who came to Sacramento for the rally on the 22nd. And for those of you who showed solidarity by attending other rallies, by wearing red, and by engaging in your social media. Your voices, they were heard loud and clear that day. And we know the lawmakers heard them because thousands of you packed this Capitol Rotunda and you were chanting as they voted on key charter school legislation. And this is what you told them. You told them it's time to end the waste, fraud, and abuse of corporate charter schools that are draining resources from our neighborhood public schools. You told them that it's time to ensure that local school communities control the authorization and review of all charters. You told them it was time to allow local school boards to consider the economic impact when authorizing a new charter school. And you told him it was time to put a cap on unregulated growth of charter schools. Now, when we picked that day of action date about 3 months ago, what we didn't know was that literally right before our rally, the Assembly would be voting on our local control bill, AB 1505, right before we were ready to start. And for a while, it was touch and go. We were watching the vote one by one on the legislative tally board and trying to get to that majority threshold. But thanks to you, our chapter presidents and our CTA board of directors who are lobbying in every single office and calling lawmakers on the floor, texting crazily, we got to that 44 number, and 44 legislators that was enough, and they voted to put local school boards back in control of charter school authorizations. And what was simply a great day of advocacy turned into a historic day of advocacy. And we sent a clear message that all our students come first. But our work, it's not done. 2 of our charter bills have passed the Assembly and now move on to the Senate. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to move on to the Senate. And we're going to go and focus our actions on the upper chambers. And the other bills, well, they've become 2-year bills. And regardless of what you may have read in the newspaper or read anywhere else or seen or heard, they are not dead. They were simply pulled from consideration. And that just means that next year we're going to be back to fight for those bills. And we're going to continue that fight. We also still have forthcoming the report of the Charter School Task Force, chaired by Superintendent of Instruction Tony Thurman. And representing CTA on that board is CTA board member Erica Jones from UTLA. And boy, she's been doing a phenomenal job. So we need to give her another round of applause. She's just not representing our students and you, but she's schooling Margaret Fortune, the president of the California Charter School Association. Let's give it up again for Erica. Just let her know that she doesn't sit in that task force alone. And as we stand up for students on a statewide basis, our local chapters are standing up for students in their communities. This is the third state council meeting in a row where we've had a local on strike or close to a strike or have just finished a strike. In April, SCTA, the Sacramento City Teachers Association, stood up with a one-day strike against a district that refused to honor the contract that was agreed to 2 years ago. Now, the district is continuing to play games. But through continued pressure, the chapter recently got them to honor that agreement. So let's give a shout out of support to our Sac City reps here who are here this morning. Where are you? Stand up. Over there on the right. And speaking of school districts behaving badly, last week, the New Haven Teachers Association became the 6th CTA chapter to go on strike this year. New Haven educators have now been on the strike line for nearly 2 weeks, and the superintendent has often refused to bargain, walks away from the table, and has made it clear what his goal is, and that is to break the union. But we are not going to let that happen. And right before lunch, we're going to take a picture of support today for the New Haven teachers. Right after our campaign speeches, be sure to stay in the room for that because we're going to gather together and hold up signs and show them, the 600 members of New Haven, that you are not standing alone, but we all stand together with you, and CTA's got your back. And whether we stand with you directly on the picket line or stand with you on social media on a virtual picket line, we are standing with you. All of these struggles and the many victories that we've had have set us up for a better future for our members and the students we serve. Every win is another step in the Red for Ed movement. Every win builds on the work that we've already done and prepares us to meet the challenges ahead. This is my final state council as CTA President. And I know that for some of you, it's your final state council as well. So let's... let's take a few minutes to reflect on the work that we started even before I took office and the groundwork that we've been laying together for the future. First, let me tell you what an honor it's been to serve here as your president. I started as a young elementary music teacher in Pittsburgh, California. And I truly never envisioned myself here. But like many of you, my passion for my students, my passion for the art of teaching and learning, and my passion for speaking out for the rights of all people on our society has sustained me on this journey. I found my voice in my union. And thank you for letting me to be your voice for the last 4 years. Shortly before I became president, this council adopted CTA's long-term strategic plan. Many of you were here for that vote, and many others of you were deeply involved in the development of the plan. That roadmap for the future has been my guide. It's been Joe's guide. It's been our board's guide. It's been all of our guide as we focus, and we keep coming back to it as we decide where to devote the resources and the tremendous talent that make up our union. That plan and its focus has served us well. The past 4 years have been years of major changes for our union, changes for the labor movement, and for public education. Soon after I took office, CTA helped lead the successful legal effort to overturn the Vergara ruling, which would have stripped our members of basic due process rights and greatly lengthened the current 2-year probationary period for K-12 teachers, and forced evaluations based on student test scores. It was the first of many victories for our CTA legal team. We worked to change the California School Accountability System and adopted the California School Dashboard, which finally includes real multiple measures of success. And test scores are no longer the sole measure. Of course, sadly, that doesn't mean we're actually testing less, because we know that many school districts are filling in that gap, right, with interim and benchmark tests. But let's commend SDEA, San Diego, SCTA, Sacramento, UTLA, Los Angeles, and other chapters that have focused on reducing the sheer amount of testing that is draining the joy from teaching and learning. We also launched the Kids Not Profit campaign, calling for greater accountability and transparency for charter schools. And one of the first things Governor Newsom did this year was to support and sign into law SB 126, which requires privately operated charter schools to follow the same laws as other schools. So, beginning January 1st, charter school board meetings will be open to the public. Beginning January 1st, charters must provide records to the public upon request. And beginning January 1st, to prevent personal gain, charter operators are banned from voting on contracts in which they have a financial interest. That's no conflict of interest. Kind of seems common sense to me. We also passed a law requiring charter schools to accept all students. We're making progress, and now we have to stay diligent in the fight. Our public schools will never be for sale. Say it with me. Our public schools will never be for sale. We passed Proposition 55, which extended taxes on the wealthiest Californians to increase funding for education. Now, without this initiative, which was led by CTA, our schools and community colleges would probably be looking at budget cuts rather than the record high increases proposed in next year's state budget. We elected pro-education candidates like Gavin Newsom and Tony Thurmond. Despite what amounted to a steamroller, millions of dollars that the privatizers spent against them, showing that the voices of educators and parents and community can and always will beat the deep pockets of a few billionaires, because our public schools will never be for sale. And you'll love this. We sued and won against Education Secretary Betsy DeVos. In April, a federal court ordered her to stop attempts to block the requirements for online colleges and universities. Basically, DeVos wanted it to be okay for schools not to tell students if they met state licensing requirements. You got it. Without those protections, students could spend time and money in programs that don't even meet their goals and then saddles them with debt and a degree that does nothing to advance their careers. Let's give a shout out and kudos to our CTA legal team. And we even were able to turn a legal loss into a victory. We've talked Janice to death over the past few years. But this month marks the 1-year anniversary of that decision. And guess what? We're still here. We're still standing. And in many ways, we're stronger than ever. Our work preparing for Janice really fell right in line with our strategic plan, especially in the areas of building and organizing culture and organizing unrepresented workers. Membership engagement has become the norm in many of our chapters, and either regionally or chapter by chapter, you've been targeting those unrepresented workers, sometimes with a simple unit modification. And other times, you got out there and in the dirt, and you were started from scratch and having those one-on-one conversations. We organized and won first contracts at several charter schools, including California's largest online charter, California Virtual Academies, CAVA. We are so proud to have these charter educators stand up and say, we want to join CTA. And our social justice work continues. We passed Prop 58 and ended California's discriminatory laws against bilingual education. We stood up against the Trump administration's cruel and intolerant immigration policies, and ensuring that our classrooms and communities remain safe places for all students and their families. And we've worked with the LGBTQ+ community to ensure that these students like me, are supported in our schools. Our Human Rights Department has worked hard with chapters and districts exploring issues of unconscious bias. And just this week, the Federal Dream and Promise Act passed a key House vote, the furthest that any DREAM Act has gotten since 2013. One of the strategic plan's focus areas that has been the most exciting to see and evolve has been transforming our profession. CTA's Instructional Leadership Corps is taking back the professional development and fostering teacher-led professional development with a team that has so far impacted over 100,000 educators. You can all be proud because you've made California a real outlier when it comes to the rest of the nations. One of the reasons that the Red for Ed movement started in some of those other right-to-work states is they are so far behind where California already is because of you. But being proud of what we've accomplished and where California stands doesn't mean we're satisfied. I'm not satisfied. Are you satisfied? I didn't think you were. Yeah, we passed Prop 30. We passed Prop 55, and Governor Newsom's proposed budget gives California public schools more funding than they've ever had. But even with all of that and the 5th largest economy in the world, we still rank near the bottom of the nation in per pupil spending. We're getting better, but we're not there yet. We must keep moving forward to the goal of full funding. That's why this council voted to support the Schools and Community First Act, which will be on the November 2020 ballot. This initiative finally closes the corporate tax loophole created by Prop 13 back in 1978 that has starved our schools of billions of dollars every year since. It is time for big corporations to pay their fair share in property taxes. And it's going to be up to us to explain it and to talk about the Schools and Community First Act. Our Campaign 2020 work group met this week to start our organizing plan. And I hope that you picked up a palm card to keep with you and as you get ready for the summer break. We can all make the difference in this fight. So, we should celebrate our victories. We should learn from them and build upon them. It has been a thrill and an honor to be part of you as part of those wins, to be with you in the fight for public education and to help our union be there for our members and our students, even in the most difficult of times. And what's probably the most satisfying for me as I step away from this role is that CTA remains in your good hands and is ready to fight and meet the challenges that lie ahead. So let's keep moving forward. Are you ready to move forward? Are you ready never to get complacent? Are you ready to get angry when it's warranted? Are you ready to stay vigilant against those who would undermine our schools and put our students and communities at risk? And are you ready to celebrate all that is great about public education and the CTA members that make it even greater? I'm humbled to serve as your president and deeply grateful to each and every one of you for all you've done to help make a stronger CTA and a better world for the students we serve. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your state council and your summer. Good evening.